Welcome back to ePathshala, EPG program in Japanese, paper 5, communication through translation. Hunya Kutsuji no communication, and we are entering into the new series, that is learn while practicing. And to see what we can do, we are starting with English to Japanese. So jisen shinagara gakushu suru ewa-yaku, and this is the first one in this series. The module is done with Anu Kumari, the trainee in the ongoing translation training program. Her contribution is data collection and the base work. This is the slide from the previous module. The concepts and techniques in nutshell, what do? They help us in handling the different situations. If a translation or a document is totally unknown, you find everything is Greek. If it is partly unknown, and sometimes it is fully known, so how the techniques can be applied. This sums up the method to apply these techniques. These are the recapitulations, the learnings of the previous module. Frame capture and transfer technique is easier to employ, whereas 5W1H gives better readability along with accuracy, but the process is tedious. Combination of two techniques helps in improving the readability and ease of doing to a certain extent. Dividing into smaller segments can be helpful. It gives the freedom. Unit introduction or the use of unit improves ease of doing, though it handles the things in a mechanical manner. Inter and intra transpositioning is applicable to macro as well as micro frames by using 5W1H. In this particular module, we are introducing application of translation techniques for doing the translation. In fact, while introducing the techniques also, we have used examples, and now the techniques are covered already, so we'll use those techniques and try to do the translation using those techniques. In this particular module, we are trying English to Japanese language pair. Normally non-native language speakers, for example in the case of Japanese Indians, Japanese language from English to Japanese, if it is done by an Indian, there is always a question mark. So we are attempting to do that through this methodology. The objectives are professional pursuits, defining the way forward for the practitioners while attempting English to Japanese translation. The guiding principles would be follow a systematic approach, even using combination of techniques, or even while using the combination techniques, look for the way to handle the deviations. Render accurate translation with reasonable readability even in English to Japanese, and outcome remains the same as it was in the previous one to some extent, targeting the practicing scholars of translation who will be able to have better confidence level for doing non-native target language translations, and generating realistic theories through practice and trainer's trainer. The prerequisite for translation are what? Source language, target language, and the subject matter. Source language gives you good knowledge. You should have good knowledge, of source language, and the fluency should be very high in the case of target language. Subject matter, working knowledge of subject matter helps. This is very common. You must have heard it many times. But what does it do actually? When you have good knowledge of source language, it's basically the frame capturing ability. You are able to capture the frame in the source language. When you have fluency in the target language, you have, if you translate into the practical words, then it is frame transferability. And subject matter, if you have working knowledge, it will help you in good rendering, though there are limitations because you cannot understand all the subjects so easily. Now let's look at the deliverables that are required in the case of translation, and does this process of technique application helps. First, we have talked about frame capture. What does it do? Frame capture it helps you in basic understanding of the source language. That means your comprehension improves. Then you do the frame transfer, that is your rendering ability. It helps in the rendering ability in target language, and what happens is the smooth rendering happens here. 5W1H, logical connectivity, which means you improve the accuracy as well as the readability. And finally the units, if you apply it in a very pragmatic manner, it improves the ease of doing, which means you will be saving efforts in the translation. As I said in the previous module also, that there is a possibility of saving 30 to 40% of your time if you have the units already available with you. If not 40%, 20 to 30% is also a good saving. And actually, when you look at a document and you find that 20 to 30% you can do without even looking into the dictionary, it improves or it boosts your confidence. So prerequisites are met through the systematic approach here. Even random application or random combination of these techniques helps. Let's see the output and efficiency on the deliverables through these examples. We'll take these examples one by one. These are coming from the patent, and the sentence is too small. Let me try to read it out. It's hemostatic products are used to accelerate the process of stopping the bleeding, in other words the hemostasis, from surgical or traumatic wounds. Now you can see there are two colors used here. Hemostatic products are used as the main or the, you can call it main or the macro, and the remaining part is to accelerate the process. And this, if you see carefully, can be divided into three: to accelerate the process of stopping the bleeding from surgical or traumatic wounds. If we look at these three as units, the first one is to accelerate the process, the second one is of stopping the bleeding, third is from surgical or traumatic wounds. The pink one are the components that can be replaced or substituted. The other color is to accelerate to of stopping the bleeding. Of stopping the bleeding of course is not, and from, they are the universal type of components. And if we see the equivalents for these units, to accelerate the noun, to accelerate the process, and this stopping of ing the noun, and from surgical or traumatic wounds from B. The composition as deciphered here is one macro frame, 3 units. 3 units altogether could have been considered as one micro clause also, but unit level adds to ease of doing, and if you can do it without dividing into micro frames, it saves on your process. Now let's see one by one. The frame equivalence, that is the macro frame equivalence, is shiketsu seihin wa and shiosareru. And let's go to the other part. First is to accelerate A. This is the frame component, or the where we don't have the complete unit. It's A o kasokusuru tameni. The replaceable or substitutable element was dropped, and if we now put it back, it's process o kasokusuru tameni. Similarly, N o something saseru, and in this case shuketsu o teishi saseru. From B is becoming B karano, and if we see here, it's shujutsu kon matawa gaisho se sosho karano, and composition as deciphered we have done in the previous one is macro plus 3 units. This has helped us in getting equivalents for almost all the components without much difficulty. And let's try to put it now in different way by applying the 5W1H. This will ascertain also whether you have done the work up to here correctly or not. What is to be kept aside is the main frame, that is the shiketsu seihin wa shiosareru, and for the remaining one we are doing it on the units. We are applying the 5W1H. Nan no tameni is to accelerate the process, and we had translated this as process o kasakusuru tameni. Dono process. Now if I read only the Japanese as answer, it's shuketsu o teishi saseru, and doku kara shujutsu kon matawa gaisho se sosho karano. And list them up now one by one. It's frame, then nan no tameni. It's first the frame is shiketsu seihin wa shiosareru. Shiketsu seihin wa process o kasokusuru tameni shiosareru. Let's see the other one. Dono process. Shiketsu seihin wa shuketsu o teishi saseru process o kasokusuru tameni shiosareru. And finally doku kara Shiketsu sein wa shujutsu kon mata wa gaisho se sousho kara no shuketsu o teishi saseru process o kasoku suru tame ni shio sareru. What has happened? You have translated piece by piece and put it into the complete sentence. Not only the translation is correct, in fact this has added to your language learning process also. The composition here was 1 macro frame, 3 units. Techniques used were frame, then unit, and then 5W1H and transpositioning. The translation, final translation comes like this, and the comments are: owing to the difference in structure of English and Japanese, intertranspositioning has been carried out amongst the segments and the frames. This is the requirement of the target language. Earlier we have done it with the Japanese to English pair. Here in this case we are attempting the same thing on the English to Japanese pair. We'll be ascertaining this by few more examples. One more thing here, in the case of units and macro frames, intertranspositioning is also used. Intratranspositioning is used. Let's see how best we can apply the techniques to do another example. The example is slightly modified, maybe slightly complicated as compared to the previous one. In order to stop the bleeding of the wounds, so even in the reading you have to read it carefully. Several active ingredients like ABCD, in this case thrombin, gelatin, collagen, fibrin, synthetic, etc., are used for manufacturing products which would accelerate the process of stopping the bleeding from wounds. Appears quite complicated. Let's see, can we simplify it? In order to stop the bleeding of the wounds, this is understandable. Several active ingredients like A, B, C, D, E are used. Understandable. For manufacturing products which would accelerate the process of stopping the bleeding from wounds. I hope it helps you in understanding the segments in the sentence, and in the process you learn segmentation in English also. But still it seems a little complex than the previous one. The basics was that a sentence can have a macro frame, micro frame, and the macro frame may be broad or the main frame, whereas micro frame can be coming subset of macro frame, or it could be in adjectival or other frame. Now let's go back to the example with this thing in mind, or this frame in mind, and let's try to see if we can identify the frames first. Within this sentence, what we read in the beginning, in order to stop the bleeding of the wounds, several active ingredients like this and this are used for manufacturing products. Then there is a which would accelerate. This is clearly an adjectival clause, so we can keep it separate. Now if we take this as the main frame or the main structure, and the micro frame is the adjectival, that is which would accelerate the process of stopping the bleeding from wounds, this adjectival clause comes as the micro frame 1. And the main frame, now also from the main frame first let's pick out the macro frame. Several active ingredients like thrombin, gelatin, collagen, fibrin, synthetic, etc. are used. It can be further reduced. For example, several active ingredients are used. Rest can be filled up later on. And the micro frame is in order to stop the bleeding of the wounds as micro frame 2, and for manufacturing products as micro frame 3. So we have 1 macro frame and 3 micro frames. Now let's put these frames in a tabular form here. The macro is several active ingredients like A, B, C, D are used. Micro, there are 3. And now if we try to do components, the equivalents for the components, we'll see it this way by putting the questions. Question is nani ga matawa nani ni taishite, so several active ingredients. It's tashu no kase ka seibun ga, dono yona, it's like A, B, C, D, etc. So it's thrombin, zerachin, and other nouns. Finally, the gose hinno yona and sureva doshta are used. Sureva doshta means what happened to them, what you did with them. So they are used. So several active ingredients are used, so it gets connected by shio sare teru. Now transpositioning. Nani ga mataba nani ni taishite tashu no kase ka seibun ga dono yona. Then you list A, B, C, D, E, F no yona. So it's tashu no kase ka seibun ga, which will be getting connected to that. Sore wa doshita. So now sore ga shio sareta. Now if you can read the whole thing which is faded out in the bottom, this is making complete sentence here. You know, by applying these techniques, we could get the macro frame, that was several active ingredients like A, B, C, D, etc. are used, was in English, and in Japanese also toron pin and then zerachin and then all those no yona and then tashu no kase ka seibun ga shio sareteru. For the remaining micro frame where there were 3, so let's take up the first one, that is which would accelerate the process of stopping the bleeding from wounds. You know, the frame is still too big, so let's try to break it into smaller segments. There could be various ways of breaking. So first we'll attempt at which would accelerate as one segment, and the second segment, the process of stopping the bleeding from wounds. For the first part, it is O kasokusuru, which would accelerate, and for the second, the process of stopping the bleeding from wounds is kizu shukketsu o teishisuru process. So the process of stopping, so the process of stopping is teishisuru process, and the bleeding is shukketsu o teishisuru process, and from wounds is kizu shukketsu o teishisuru process. Nani o suru o kasokusuru, dono yona process, kizu shukketsu o teishisuru, not said part is process o kasokusuru. So the equivalent for this is kizu shukketsu o teishisuru process o kasokusuru. Now going same sentence, let's see, you know, whether we did the segmentation properly or not, and try to do the segmentation at a different position. Instead of breaking at which would accelerate, now we are breaking at which would accelerate the process, and let's see what happens, what difference comes. These are the 2 segments, and the equivalents are process o kasokusuru, and the second one is of stopping the bleeding from wounds is kizu shukketsu o teishisuru. Now if we apply the 5W1H based transpositioning, nani o suru, process o kasokusuru, and dono yona process, kizu shukketsu teishisuru, and the equivalent comes again the same, kizu shukketsu o teishisuru process o kasokusuru. That in this particular case, breaking has not made the, you know, where exactly you should break and get the segment 1 and segment 2 has not made much difference, but you have to do it in a pragmatic manner. It should not change the sense. So we have covered the first microframe. Let's now see the second microframe. In order to stop the bleeding of the wounds, let's try to break it into units this time. And in order to is one, stop the bleeding of the wounds is the second. In order to is tameni, something no tameni, in order to stop the bleeding of the wounds. Bleeding of the wounds is kizu shukketsu o teishisuru, nan no tameni, kizu shukketsu o teishisuru tameni. Kizu shukketsu o teishisuru tameni is the equivalent. And now let's see the third one for manufacturing products. Let's see if we can do some other method or to do it in a different style for a change. Try to replace this for manufacturing products is equal to for A. That means manufacturing products has been replaced by A. For A gets translated as A no tameni. Now if you substitute the A on the right hand side, A was manufacturing products, which is seihin no seizo, so it is seihin no seizo no tameni. What it means is that you divide, pick up components, it could be word, it could be compound, keep it aside, go further, and then put those words, and it gives a complete sentence or complete clause. Now we have all the three, all frames are translated. Now let's try to do the transpositioning on these frames with the help of 5W1H. The macro frame was already seen. Let's apply the 5W1H in sequence against. In fact, we are trying to put questions on the main sentence and trying to get the answers in Japanese. Doshite. So you are saying in the macro frame, ga shio sareteru. Some seibun ga shio sareteru. You have said tashu no kase ka seibun, but we say some seibun ga shio sareteru. Doshite kizu shukketsu o teishu suru tame ni. Next question is doko de seihin no seizo ni. And next question is dono yona. It's shukketsu o teishi suru process o kasaku suru yona, which is not said here. And the final one is kizu shukketsu o teishi suru tame ni shukketsu o teishi suru process o kasaku suru seihin no seizo ni A B C D no yona tashu no kase ka seibun ga shio sareteru. Does it make some sense? Quite complicated it looked in the beginning, but what has come out here, it does make a very smooth sense. Some sort of fine tuning needs to be done, and let's do that fine tuning, because there are some portions which probably can be removed, can be substituted. That part is to be done here. The fine tuning here is kizu shukketsu teishi suru process o kasaku suru tame no iyakuhin no seizo ni. A, B, C, D, these all have to be listed because these were there in the original. No yona tashu no kase ka seibun ga shio sareteru. Owing to the difference in structure of English and Japanese, again intertranspositioning has been carried out amongst the segments or the frames. In the case of units and macro frames, intra-transpositioning is used, and the composition here was 1 macro frame, 3 micro frames, and techniques which were used was unit plus 5W1H and transpositioning. Let's see another example. By now you have understood that if we apply the techniques, even English to Japanese translation becomes possible. Not only it becomes possible, to some extent the accuracy is also maintained. We see here an example. The study also highlighted the need for more precise. When you start reading the second line, that the study also highlighted the need for more precise, it starts getting complicated. So you can read this example. Let's do it step by step. The initial and the revised translations are given here. This is the breaking it into different components. First, the main frame. The study also highlighted the need for more precise information about these dietary components. The microframe 1, which has come as an adjectival, was that are required to bring about a response and to determine long-term benefits as well as any adverse effects over long periods. Now, in the main frame, the study also highlighted the need for more precise information about these dietary components. There are some components that can be taken as microframe, which are far more precise information about these dietary components. These are microframe 2 and microframe 3. The balance, that is the study also highlighted the need, is the macroframe. Now, when you are trying to do English to Japanese translation, see very carefully, the macroframe was so small. The study also highlights the need. So if you focus, the study also highlights the need, you will start feeling that the sentence is not so difficult and you can translate it. You can translate it part by part, 1 macroframe and 3 microframes in this particular case. And when we put it here, the study also highlighted the need. Let's go one by one. The study, by questioning nani ga or nani ni taishite, the study, and the equivalent is hon kenkyu ga. This study, the study. If you simply say kenkyu ga, then also it's okay, but in the running context it was making a sense of this study, so hon has been put here. Soreba doshita highlighted the need, also highlighted the need, also can be dropped in English, but in Japanese it may have to be put right in the beginning. Ni is kyochoshita, otherwise you'll have to put o for object particle. Ni is mo kyochoshita. Transpositioning will be nani ga mataba nani ni taishite hon kenkyu ga. Soreba doshita hon kenkyu ga ni is mo kyochoshita. So this is the equivalent for the macro frame. Going for the micro frame one by one. Let's see the first one, that is that are required to bring about a response and to determine long-term benefits as well as any adverse effects over long periods. Let's take the microframe 1, that are required to bring about a response and to determine long-term benefits as well as any adverse effects over longer periods. the sentence is long or the composition is long, this needs to be broken down. Let's break it into smaller units or segments. That are required to bring about a response is 1, and to determine long-term benefits as well as any adverse effects is 2nd, and over longer periods is 3. These are the 3, and the equivalents are that are required to bring about a response. The literal equivalent would be koka o motorasu koto o hitsuyo suru mono. And to determine long-term benefits as well as any adverse effects. Mata choki teki riten oyobi fukusayo no kyume ni kanjite. Over longer periods can be translated in many ways. One equivalent is choki ni wataru. This of course can be taken as a unit. The microframe is listed here, and microframes are listed here, and we are trying to use the 5W1H for reconfirmation. When we put the question dono yona, the answer comes koka o motorasu koto hitsuyo suru mono. Soshite means anything else. Mata choki teki riten oyobi fukusayo no kyume ni kanjite. When or over what period? So itsu over longer period, and the equivalent is choki ni wataru. Now transpositioning, dono yona koka o motorasu koto hitsuyo suru mono. Soshite anything else, and the answer is mata choki teki riten oyobi fukusayo no kyume ni kanjite itsu choki ni wataru. And we get the complete sentence here at the bottom. Koka o motorasu koto hitsuyo suru mono mata choki teki riten oyobi fukusayo no kyume ni kanjite choki ni wataru. Let's do the same thing on microframe 2 through a different process, the process which we had used earlier also, by replacing or simplifying the portion. So for more precise information, so it's for A, that is more precise information becomes A, and for A is A no tameni. A was replaceable or was replaced component for more precise information, which has got an equivalent more motto precise kuashi. You can also put seimitsuna, and information is joho, so it's motto kuashi joho going for A, making it motto kuashi joho no tameni. Same for microframe 3. About these dietary components, so about A, so A ni suite, and dietary components, these dietary components are korera no shokuji ryoho seibun, and putting that together by replacing A with the equivalent, it comes as korera no shokuji ryoho seibun ni suite. Now we have all the 3 ready here. You can read it. The flow is making some sense, at least part by part. If we try to put them together now, macroframe was hon kenkyu wa niz mo kyochoshita, and apply 5W1H, nan no tameni motto kuwashi joho no tameni, nan no joho or donna joho korera no shokuji ryoho seibun ni suite, and rest is continuation, that is motto kuwashi joho no tameni. And dono yona shokuji ryoho seibun koka o motorasu koto hitsuyo suru mono mata choki teki riten oyobi fukusayo no kyume ni kanjite choki ni wataru. And this is the final combination of all the segments, that is koka o motorasu koto hitsuyo suru mono mata choki teki riten oyobi fukusayo no kyume ni kanjite choki ni wataru korera no shokuji ryoho seibun ni suite motto kuwashi joho no tameni needs mo kyochoshita. So if we put it part by part, it makes some sense. Of course, there is some fine tuning required, and let's see how the fine tuned translation comes out. It's hon kenkyu wa koka o motorasu koto o hitsuyo suru mono mata choki teki riten oyobi fukusayo no kyume ni kanjite choki ni wataru korera no shokuji ryoho seibun ni suite motto kuwashi joho no needs mo kyochoshita. And the comments are, owing to the difference in the translation in the structure of English and Japanese, intertranspositioning has been carried out amongst the segments. In the case of units and macroframe, intratranspositioning is done. The composition was 1 macroframe, 3 microframes, and the techniques used here were frame, unit, 5W1H, and transpositioning at the end. And when we see this, let's do some more beautification or some more fine tuning. And if you see the last part here, honkenkyu wa kouka o motarasu koto o hitsuyou to suru mono, and if I say honkenkyu wa kouka mata chouki teki riten, it's not making any difference substantively if we drop o motarasu koto o hitsuyou to suru mono. So if this is dropped, the sentence becomes much smoother, and this is the final translation. That means honkenkyu wa kouka mata chouki teki riten oyobi fukusayo no kyome ni kanshite chouki ni wataru korera no shokuji ryōhō seibun ni tsuite motto kuwashii jōhō no niizu mo kyōchō shita. Let's see the learning. Basically, what we have done here is segmentation in a systematic manner. So the process is systematic segmentation. The methodology can be your own also. If you feel like, you can apply frame, unit, the 5W1H. The process appears long and complicated because doing without application of these techniques and with application of techniques certainly will add to some time when you apply the techniques. But I would say try it few times. It will become familiar and it will save on time also. Non-native speakers or non-native of target language speakers can also render good quality translation even in English to Japanese language pair. You just need to follow the guidelines as we have talked about in this particular module. One possible flow that can be recommended here is frame capture, then frame transfer, then confirmation through 5W1H, and then take the help of units. 5W1H can be kept in your mind while capturing the frame also if it helps you. Transpositioning is certainly an art, but I would say apply 5W1H, it will start happening automatically. Units help in improving the ease of doing, and it's a mechanical way, so you may have to make some finer touches. Caution is, develop the habit of rechecking by another person, preferably by the native speaker in the case of English to Japanese translation if Japanese is not your native language. That's all with this module. Thank you very much for being with me, and we'll see you again in module 17.